Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I am your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hello, Alison. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here again. So in this episode, we're going to be working on one of our listeners' charts.
Yeah.
This is our listener called Bella Boom.
Yes, Bella Boom. I love it.
So she wrote in and asked us to have a quick squiz at her chart, which is what we're going to do. We're going to give a high-level overview and share some of our thoughts about how we approach chart interpretations. This is more of an example of what to pull out, what's important, what isn't.
Yeah.
And we'll chat about a few things and just lay it out so that she herself can go further with what we've brought forward and dig deeper because, I mean, there's only so much time, right?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. So before we start, I just want to give the chart details for this chart so that if our listeners want to cast it and follow along with what we're talking about, it will make sense.
That's good.
So she's born on October the 3rd, 1975 at 10:35 p.m., Cincinnati, Ohio, in the USA.
Yes.
And that returns a Gemini ascendant at 17 degrees.
Yep. Sounds great.
Okay, so the first thing I always look at of all my 5-point things is the balances, which is all where we're trying to find what is strong, what is speaking forward in this chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing we look at is the balances, and she's got 6 planets in the active polarity, so that is a very strong indicator of someone who's outgoing, someone who's putting things out into the world is the active polarity.
For sure.
Yeah. Next thing we look at is the elements. So the elements are actually in balance as much as what elements can be.
Yeah.
And so are the modes. So there's no emphasis or weakness there. And then when we get to the hemispheres, now the northern hemisphere is strong with all the planets basically, or the majority of them, in this more private area of her life.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
This is one of those beginner questions.
That's what we want.
But I wondered this like 20 years ago when I started getting into astrology and studying for myself. Why is the bottom half of the chart called the Northern Hemisphere?
Oh, well, that's a good question. So back in the day when astrology was created almost, it was from I'm going to say the Greeks. Of course, it was that group, the Northern Hemisphere. Yeah. So what they're doing is as you look at the chart, you're standing looking south because the sun is making an arc across the sky in front of you.
Of course, yeah.
So north is behind you.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at this chart, that will be as the sun goes, and the north will always be behind you. So that is a tricky thing because that will catch everybody out.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then moving on to the quadrants, her second quadrant is strong. She's actually got 4 planets in there, so that's 2 more than the next best, and that's what defines it as a strong quadrant.
For sure, yeah.
So that's the self-other quadrant.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that's the 4th, 5th, and 6th house, for anyone who's not familiar with quadrants. Okay. Yeah.
So the second quadrant, 4th, 5th, and 6th house.
Yeah.
And then we look at the triple division, and she's got a strong first division, so that's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th houses.
Oh, yeah, like she's got 4 things in there.
Yeah, so that is the me division. We've got me, we, and you. Right. So her focus is me, private, all these keywords.
Self-development, and she's coming up on her, well, we'll get there, but the Chiron return eventually, coming up.
Okay, yeah. Then we look at the chart ruler. So this is the planet that rules the sign on the ascendant, and in her case, it's Mercury.
Yeah.
And so we said, well, where is Mercury? Mercury's in Libra. And you want to say, well, whereabouts does Mercury rule the chart? So Mercury's got quite a lot of influence. It's ruling the northern hemisphere because it's the chart ruler. So it's ruling that whole the northern hemisphere. It's also ruling the first quadrant. That's 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And the 1st and the 5th houses. So this is a planet that has a lot of influence on her life.
For sure.
And what Mercury represents is communication.
Yeah. I mean, she's got the Gemini rising, but then she's got the Virgo on the 4th house cusp. So that's how those two.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Sections.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. But Gemini rising, I like.
Yes.
And Mars in the 1st house there in Gemini.
Yes.
That's a really positive, I would think,
placement.
Yeah, for sure. For communication, for just being, I would think like an active and probably outgoing person. I see her being very personable and very
yes.
Maybe even
what's the word? Not effacious.
Not eccentric, but like effort. Yeah, like just a bubbly, colorful, interesting person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's Gemini. It's got to be great, right? Yeah. Mercury's a great planet to have as a chart ruler.
For sure. Yeah. And Mars in the first house. I mean, that's, especially for a woman, that's a really interesting placement.
Yes.
Because that gives, it's weird that I'm thinking of this as an example, but the last person whose chart we reviewed who had Mars in the first house was Barbie.
Oh, well, there you go. I'm glad you remembered that.
Who also had Gemini rising.
Okay.
Right? So
all right.
That's an interesting one because there's a femininity about Gemini, even though it's a masculine sign in the old timey kind of thing. But I mean, when you think of Gemini, there's that duality, right?
Yeah, always.
I think of Tinkerbell. Isn't that weird that I think of Tinkerbell? I don't know why, but I do. I think of Tinkerbell, and it's just Tinkerbell has traditionally it's a very kind of ambisexual, like
neutral.
Yeah, neutral, but also like both kind of like in a cool way, like a cool, like just
easygoing.
Yeah, easygoing, flirtatious, fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah. So, but Mercury actually in her fifth house is in Libra, which also an interesting placement because Libra is clearly a Venus thing. So that brings a bit more femininity into it. It's not conjunct the sun, but it's in the same sign as the sun. So we've got that sun, it's a stellium of Pluto, the sun, and Mercury in Libra in the fifth house, which is really
it's the house of creativity, isn't it? And if you're a mother, it's all your little kids are in there.
Right.
Your little darlings, as I like to call them.
Yeah, whether they're children or creations or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, or pets.
Or pets, well, yes.
Beautiful pets, beautiful show pets.
Oh, so the Mercury does get a couple of hard aspects. It's got the opposition to Jupiter and Chiron. And Eris.
Yes.
So that will give... I want to say it's going to be questioning knowledge. So again, I would assume if she's someone who's out seeking information and wanting to grow her mind and keep that what they call brain plasticity going and whatnot, she, because of the opposition, she's likely to challenge things saying, oh, just because she said so, let me double check that. Let me dig into these things.
I'm thinking like challenging groupthink because Jupiter conjunct Chiron in the 11th house. That's a groupthink, right?
Yeah.
So I would see that as like having challenges to establishment or not the patriarchy. Let's not like be gross about it, but definitely like there's some kind of institutions or institutional knowledge or the man in some form that she feels like she's constantly up against and having to prove herself.
Yes. It's quite a bit there, and I think it would because of that. She's probably got a lot going on in her head.
Yeah. And
lots of ideas about how things should get fixed or whatever. So she's not just blithely sitting there saying, oh, if you say so.
Right. No. She's like, well, no, this should be, I have ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but there is an upside. Let's be happy about that. So Mercury, because we're talking about Mercury because it's the chart ruler. So it's trying that Mars we were talking about. Now this is great.
Yes.
It's bringing this connection in. It's also trying the ascendant.
Yes.
So
this is not someone who's going to want to just sit by and let the man roll over her.
Yes.
No, she's going to want to have her say. She's going to want to, even if she doesn't feel like she has a platform, she's going to feel like she has something to contribute.
Yes.
Some inspiration, information, knowledge, intellectual capital, as they say.
Intellectual capital. It's great. And it's also trying the midheaven, which is super interesting.
Yeah.
That these 2 points in her chart, Mercury, the chart ruler, is engaged and connected to who she is and how she presents and what she does in the world.
Yeah.
So this makes me want to say that the message that she has about who she is and what she does is clear to everybody.
Should resonate.
Yeah.
Should have something to contribute. Should be public. Should be shared.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that she's like this at home and like that at somewhere else. Right. It looks a lot more clearer once she's got past that Jupiter.
Although it is interesting having Pisces on the midheaven, right? Oh, wait, is it? No,
it's Aquarius. It's Aquarius.
Well, that's actually, no offense to the Pisces, but Aquarius makes me feel a little better about her chances of communicating that. No, that's great.
Yeah. So this is it. So the chart ruler is it's engaged. It's got multiple aspects, hard and soft, well placed, engaged, and I think it's got a lot to say about her chart. Yeah. And if I was her astrologer, I would go deep on Mercury and pay close attention to Mercury. That transits when Mercury's retrograde. Yeah. There's going to be a reduction in her output and her mental ability to cope with everything. Yeah. So that's a pause time in your year. Yeah. You know, take it easy. Take a step back during Mercury.
What do they call it? A news fast or like a social media fast where you black out something. I don't know. Where
the digital decoupling.
There
what do they call it? It's
digital detox.
That's it.
That's the one. Yeah, definitely recommended.
Well, Mercury every three times a year when Mercury's in retrograde, do that because it makes sense, particularly because she's got Mercury as the ruler of her chart.
Yes,
that would be something that we'd want to kind of pay attention to.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and I just want to say that all the details about what we're saying are actually now on the blog post, and I've got the chart printed there, and I've also got an aspectarium, which is just, maybe it's too much information, but we're good Virgos here, so we like to get all the bits and bobs.
She's got Gemini rising, she doesn't mind too much information.
Exactly. So this is the aspectarium that I've got there, and she could definitely dig into all of those aspects. So the next thing that I look at first, or fourth, is the sun, because that's always a powerful thing. So the sun is in Libra.
Yeah, conjunct Pluto.
Yeah, so it's in its fall, so it's not particularly well placed in Libra, but we'll live with it. Yeah. But it's in its own house, so that always helps with genuine creativity, and it's ruling the Western Hemisphere, the second quadrant, third and fourth houses. So it's got quite a bit of influence in the chart.
Yeah,
you know, it will give her a polish to her social graces. I think this position, yes, always. So
if nothing else, her name is Bella, right? You know,
exactly,
beauty,
right?
Yeah,
Sun in Libra.
Bella,
yeah.
God, I love it.
So we've got that Sun conjunct Pluto. Now there's an aspect to grapple with,
right? Yeah.
So I'm just going to double check whether it's the morning planet. Let me have a look. Yes, it is. So Pluto is the morning planet. We used to call it the Oriental planet, but we no longer use that word.
Yes, right.
So we're now calling it the morning planet. And
tell us what that means.
It's the planet that rose ahead of the sun on the day she was born.
Oh, okay.
So in her case, it's Pluto. So what's happening is Pluto is coming above the horizon ahead of the sun. So it's pre-dawn.
Yeah.
And Pluto's saying, hey, she's coming because she is the sun.
So it's almost like Pluto is the announcer, like the
yes, it heralds. It's like
herald.
When they were saying, you know, Caesar's coming, coming, and or when the hockey's going.
Pluto. Yeah, right?
So it's Pluto. So what this indicates is that she may present initially as plutonian.
Interesting.
As, I want to say, perhaps sexy, perhaps dangerous, perhaps passionate about things. And because that is the reputation that people talk about before she gets there.
Right. Right.
So, but then when she does arrive, which is the sun rising, they will get to see the sun in Libra. And
that wonderful, charming Gemini rising.
Exactly. Yeah. But then she will have, so the thing is here that the impression that she may be having her reputation going forward may be a little harsh, and being aware of it, she can polish that up.
It might be someone who people, and we can speak personally to this kind of weird thing where you've said in the past that people tend to think that you're wealthier than you are. And because I've got Scorpio rising, people have said they think I'm bitchier than I am when they first meet me. They're like, oh, I thought you were judging me. I thought you were scowling at me. I'm like, what the? No, I'm just shy. Come on. Like, I don't even wear black head to toe, but I've been told, like, oh, when I first met you.
Yes, yeah.
Really? Like, that's just my Scorpio protective shell.
That's right.
And she doesn't have Gemini rising. I mean, she has Gemini rising, but with that sun conjunct Pluto, she probably gives an impression of either being, as you say, sexier or more intense or more powerful than perhaps she feels she is.
Yes.
And this is something that you ideally would grow into.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. It can be used like it's the impression that people have before they meet you face to face, you see. Yeah. So if you're going to some party and they say, oh, yes, so-and-so's coming, but tread carefully. That's the type of thing.
Don't talk about this or that, or, you know.
But then when they get to meet you, that's when the Libra will come through.
She was perfectly lovely. She was so charming.
Mm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you've got that as well. So it comes up as a sometimes as an issue if you're going for a job interview and people are thinking, oh, she seemed a bit harsh. So until they get to know you. So you want to be aware of that when you've got Pluto in this position.
Wear white.
To soften
wear light
it up.
blue.
Work on that resume. Soften it up.
Wear a bright, nice, happy color.
Yes. So that's a great aspect to have. And then the hard ones are, of course, the Sun is opposing Eris.
Yeah.
Which is neither here nor there really at this stage, but we do mention it. And it's square the part of Fortune.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So there may be some challenge there to identifying with what and when we talk about fortune, we mean the good things you have in your life.
Yeah.
It's not always just money, but because it's challenged and the Sun is the self, she may never think she has enough. So that needs to kind of have a bit of internal looking on that one. Yeah. And then the soft aspects are that the Sun is trying the ascendant. How nice is that?
That's nice. That's really nice. Yeah.
It really is. She's probably a beautiful woman, well dressed, well groomed, clean shoes, all of these things.
Yeah, a well integrated personality, like someone who doesn't feel quote unquote awkward all the time.
She's got some social graces.
She might later on hear things that people have said about her and be like, "What? How? Where did that come from?"
Yes.
But she feels, and this is a great thing, integrated in herself.
Yeah.
And that's really good.
Yeah, that's
really
great.
Valuable.
Yeah. And then another soft aspect for the Sun is sextile Neptune, which is always one of those aspects that you think, well, I'll get back to that later. But Neptune is an indication of art, music, the aesthetics, paying attention to how things look.
The image, the glamour.
Yeah, the atmospheres around. And so she'll definitely be tuned into that, which is good, for social interactions.
Oh my gosh,
right?
Yeah, and it's in the 6th house, so that could be something that she puts to work,
Yes.
Perhaps in, I don't know, some field like decorating or design or...
Yeah, and making things look better than they do.
Yeah. Staging. Yeah. All of those modern careers influencing, I don't know.
Yeah. And then we'd also have a look at the moon. Okay. Yeah. So she's got the moon in Virgo.
I recommend that. That's a good
Do
placement.
you? Is that what yours is? Okay.
It is. Yeah.
Yes. So maybe some analysis of how you feel and how you don't feel. And how do you feel about that?
Bella, I can assure you, you are your own worst critic. That's all. That's a Virgo moon to a Virgo moon talking. You are your own worst critic.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Rest assured.
Yeah, so fortunately the moon is in the 4th house, so again, home comforts, home family should be pretty good.
Yeah.
Family's got to be a kind of important thing, and if she is a mother, she's likely to make a nice home for her, enough clean sheets on the bed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the moon's ruling the 2nd house, which is, of course, our financial house, which can be tricky at times because the moon phases and grows big and grows thin.
Yeah.
And so does the money. You have your feast and your famine. So when you've got a feast, bank the money, and then because the famine will come because the moon will actually phase. Yeah. That's the tricky thing when the moon's ruling a financial house.
Yeah.
So there's just a tip there. And then the lunar phase is balsamic. So this is an indication of that. It's the time where we are resting before the next big move. So time has to be given to pause. Time has to be given for reflection and renewal. You can't just be going.
Yeah.
There has to be the pause. And that's shown through that lunar phase.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So the moon's aspects are it's squaring Mars. So there might be a bit of emotional flare-ups there or some strong language at times.
Fluctuation over needing to rest and other people wanting you to be active when you're not. When you need to renew yourself, why are you always
self-care?
Yes, self-care. Yeah. Maybe an out of sync energy level.
Yes,
with your partner or with your family.
Yeah,
other people who expect things of you.
You have to pay attention to that balsamic phase.
Yes.
So the moon's also square the ascendant. So where the sun was trining beautifully and working nicely, bringing that Libra energy, the moon is now squaring from Virgo, and it might be that critic saying, I don't know quite if I feel, how do I like her? Do I feel I like this? Do I look good? Do these pants make me look fat? Can I wear orange or whatever it is?
Right.
And there is that internal dilemma going on about, how do I feel about this? And
nitpicking yourself to death.
Well,
I feel it. Yeah.
And additionally, it's squaring the pot of fortune. So where you've got the sun trining these points, you've got the moon squaring. So the moon is the sun is what you want, but the moon can be what you need. So there has to, give that some thought as well.
Yeah.
So the moon does have a couple of soft aspects. So it's trining the south node. Now, when the moon's connecting to its own node, it's always a cohesive message you're getting.
Yeah.
So with it being trining the south node is about your past, people you knew before, old flames.
Right.
Coming.
And that will mean it's sextile the north node, which is a positive aspect because they're always opposite each other.
Yeah.
So that's a good relationship to have.
It's easygoing, and there might be a lot of time spent going down memory lane and back in the day and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Because you go into the past and say, well, when I was a young girl, this, that, and the other.
Which could also be used in as we were talking about the career and the decor and
drawing
on nostalgia
that's the word,
right? Nostalgia. Some kind of thing where you're using imagery from the past or something that's like recalling fond memories for people. Maybe sort of packaging something for people that makes them feel warm and nostalgic and kind of creating like.
Definitely, you can lean into
digital
that.
Scrapbooks or like vacations that history.
Apple pie and things.
Something.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing that I look at is going to be the dispositive tree, which I love, and we are going to be doing an episode about the dispositive tree. It's on our list.
Bring it on.
And so Bella has a mutual reception dispositive tree.
Ooh.
So she's got the sun is in Libra.
Yeah.
And Venus is in Leo. So the sun's in Venus's sign and Venus is in the sun's sign. Mm-hmm. So they're both in each other's sign. So they're working in cahoots.
That's lovely. And it's so funny. We were talking about that actually just last week, about how common it is. And it's not actually that common, which is why we mention it. But it seems like it pops up. It just pops up.
It does. So when you're doing this dispositive tree, and as I say, it's on the image is actually on the website.
Yeah.
What this really means is that although the whole tree is cohesive and everything's joined together, you basically got two sides to this personality. Mm-hmm. You've got the sun chunk, and the sun has Saturn below it because Saturn's in Leo.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Venus side, and Venus is in Leo too.
Yeah, and they have the flavor of each other.
Yes.
It's like a little
charming, elegant
thing. Yeah.
And don't mistake. Libra is a cardinal sign. They will lead, and you or give you advice.
It is absolutely not the passive Venus that you are thinking of. It is
it's
the Ginger versus the Marianne, as I like to say. She's got a career.
Yeah, that sun in Libra gives you the thing that you can charm people into going to hell, and they'll look forward to the journey.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not going to make them an apple pie. Hell no. That is Taurus's job.
That's
or something.
Too much. Yeah, yeah. So then all the other planets are below Venus. We've got the chart ruler here below in Libra and Pluto in Libra. Below that, we then have Mars in Gemini, which we've spoken about already, which is quite a strong planet in this chart. And it's actually a gateway planet because it has 3 below it.
Ooh, a gateway planet.
Yes, a gateway planet. So Mars in Gemini is a gateway planet for her.
Yes.
And below that, we've got Uranus, Jupiter, and Chiron. And then below Jupiter is good old Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
So what this means is these are like your foot soldiers, these bottom planets, feeding the stuff up to the sergeant, to the general, to the major general, to whoever it is. But Mars in Gemini could either let through or throttle this energy.
Huh.
So it's a highly sensitive planet that would need further explanation, particularly because it's in the first house. I would lean on that Mars and see what's happening with Mars. I would definitely pay attention to Mars transits as they connect to her chart, because the Mars is very important in her chart behind this Mercury.
Yeah, so anything going through Gemini, pay attention to it, basically.
Well, yeah.
Because it's touching your ascendant and your Mars.
Yeah, and as Mars comes round, Mars is an influential planet for her. So that comes out within the dispositor tree. Mm-hmm. And then on the actual image, I'm just going to explain that where we've got the blue, the light blue, these are your actual, there's a trine between Mercury and Mars. So that link is also an aspect. So it's a double whammy there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is this one. There's a trine from Mars to Uranus and a sextile from Mars to Chiron. So showing us once more that this Mars is an important planet and not to be dismissed.
And I see an out-of-sign conjunction from the part of fortune to that Mars.
Yeah.
So the Mars is at 25 Gemini, and part of fortune is at 2 degrees Cancer.
Yeah.
They are conjunct, but it's an out of sign conjunction. But it's in the first house, which makes it ultra significant. Part of fortune in the first house is.
She is her fortune. Your face is your fortune.
Yeah, or your Mars in Gemini, which is,
yes, how you put yourself forward.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to wear a red lipstick and a red dress, and you're going to put yourself forward.
Yeah.
It's all very much who she is. Yeah.
Or since it's, Gemini, maybe like a coral.
Okay. All right. Well, how about guava?
Guava. We should do a whole episode on the lipstick colors.
Well, that'll have
to... Maybe a Wednesday episode.
That'll come. Yeah, but what this saying is, what the point here is that we're picking out these 2 planets, Mercury and Mars. Mm-hmm. These are the planets she needs to dig into first. Don't get overwhelmed with nitpicking down in Neptune's semi-sextile to Chiron. We're not interested in that. We want to know what's happening with Mercury, what's happening with Mars, and lean into that full energy.
Yes, for sure.
So I would recommend she did further research on that natally, and also watch out for the transits of Mercury and Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and the reason I'm saying this is that because the sun is not particularly strong, so Mercury is got a lot to say in this chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had asked us about her career, midlife, and relationships. Mm-hmm. And I just want to note how, I don't know how much you've thought this through, but she does have that Neptune conjunct the descendant.
Right.
So how do you feel about that? It's in the 6th house, so it's not in the 7th house. So Neptune in the 6th house for sure, but it is conjunct that descendant. And she did ask about relationships, and I find that interesting. No?
Is it conjunct?
I mean, 9 degrees, 17 degrees. Okay, it's a
stretch. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's not. It's worth mentioning.
Absolutely, absolutely. So she's got a special focus was what? Midlife change and relationships and career. So again, it's I tell you, there's only 2 questions.
I mean, right, career and relationships. Yeah, like what else are you going to ask about, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
But I mean, that's the first thing I see when I think relationships, besides the fact that you're a Libra with Pluto, conjunct the sun. And that's in the 5th house, which is great for stuff.
Artistic, what are we saying? Artistic jobs, that's what we're saying? Jobs in music or ethereal or...
Yeah, or something creative, but like, got that powerful Pluto conjunct the sun thing.
Oh yes.
And maybe you come on strong and people are afraid of you at first in relationships, possibly because of that, right?
Yeah.
But then you got that Neptune loosely conjunct the descendant.
Yes.
So, I mean, relationships might be, and then of course the 7th house is empty, the 8th house is empty, which is not to say there's nothing wrong with an empty house, blah blah blah, but it's possible that there is sort of a Neptunian thing going on with the relationships.
Yeah,
there,
well, it's Sagittarius on the 7th, so.
Right? Yeah, I mean that desire for connection because of the Gemini rising, and then the descendant being Sagittarius, which is weirdly like a dichotomous sort of desire for freedom.
Yes,
on the 7th house.
Tricky.
It's tricky.
Yeah, very tricky.
I mean, then again, not to be, here's digression. Take a drink if you're playing along at home.
Cheers.
Cheers. My mother has a Gemini rising, and obviously the descendant is in Sagittarius. She is a Sagittarius, and she has been happily married for this year. It will be 30 years. So
unbelievable.
Happy anniversary to my mother. But all this is to say, if you do have Sagittarius on the descendant, don't worry. That does not mean you're going to be alone and a sad Sagittarian frolicking by yourself, like wishing for a partner. No, that is not what that means. We are just saying that you do have perhaps a desire for freedom that might conflict with your desire to connect, and that might, in this particular case, Bella Boom, be conjunct Neptune, and you might have Neptunian partners or Neptunian visions of the partner that might not line up with reality, and to be aware of that. Yeah, because your mom does travel with other young men, doesn't she? Yeah, I know. You're laughing, but it's the case. Yeah. I mean, my mother has a lot of wonderful friends because she's actually going to college right now. So she's with people of all different ages all the time. She's been with her partner, who is a couple of years younger than her, not inappropriately younger. He's, I believe, a few years younger than her, less than a decade. And they've been happily partnered for like 30 years now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she's a very youthful, sprightly, spirited person.
With Sagittarius on the same
right,
house.
and that's that Gemini rising thing.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be a youthful, spirited person, and you're gonna need someone who either, brings that out in you and like matches you, move for move, or is that anchor that you may need in life, and maybe like a weirdly opposite personality who just is the homebody and wants to like tend the hearth, and you go and you do your thing, and I'm picturing like one of those old timey compasses, like with the point that sticks in the earth, and then the pencil that widely circles around it, and that could be your thing, or possibly a complete partner in adventure who will match you move for move.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
It's an interesting thing. So since you asked about relationships, that is what I see. And we're curious how that played out in your chart, actually. Like, to be honest, that could be expressed in a number of ways.
Yeah. So if we look at the upcoming transits, because that's really what she's saying, the first step that we spoke about as soon as you sat down is, of course, this Chiron return is coming up.
Yep.
Now, I've had a quick squiz at the ephemeris, and we're looking May 2025 to April 2026. It's going to be a 3-hit Chiron return. It will go direct, it'll go retrograde, then it actually goes slightly out of orb, but I don't even consider that, and then it'll come back for the final hit. So you've got this whole year, from May next year till April, living through this Chiron return.
Yeah.
And her Chiron is there in Aries.
Yep. In the 11th house.
In the 11th house, conjoining Jupiter.
Yeah.
And prior to your Chiron return, we've spoken about this. We've got an episode about it. You are the protege, then you become the mentor. Yeah. And it gives you a certain, I don't want to say age, but you get to a point in life where you can guide other people.
Right. And it's sensitive in the 11th house too. Like mine's in the 6th house. So that's just about my, me, career, blah, 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 daily life. But you, Bella Boom, since it's in your 11th house, that's, and also since your Chiron is conjunct Jupiter, like that's a fascinating placement to me. Like that says, if you've felt isolated ever in your life, if you felt like you were toiling in secrecy, or that you were just going from thing to thing and not really knowing what your ultimate goal was. Yeah. Now is the time, like this is the find your tribe transit,
Yes.
Find those people who can help you go through the next 50 years of your life.
Yes. Yes.
The people you want to take along with you, the people you want to support you, the people you want to mentor, the people you want to learn from. Yes. Now is the time to find those people.
They're likely to pop up as well.
Yes.
And also, getting back to this relationship career question, and she said midlife, which is what we're talking about here, is during this Chiron return, all of these things are going to come to the fore, but only after it's passed, which is, what did I say?
April 2026.
Yeah. Will there be some stability then? But there's going to be all sorts of possibilities and, dare I say, adventures as she grapples with this Chiron return, which is great. I mean, we all kind of survive these Chiron returns, but they can be, especially with a 3-hit, that's not one to be missed. And I think that changes will occur. Yeah. And it's a time when you don't want to be the doormat anymore.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying she was, but
it's
many people are.
Yeah, and since Chiron is in Aries, that's that's like the personality, it's the wounded healer, right? So it's the wounded healer in the sign of like your ego. Yeah. I mean, and I'm speaking from personal experience. This is my generation, right? Like Chiron generation.
Yes.
It's like that wounded ego thing of like, oh, Generation X. What do we stand for? What do we want?
Exactly.
Do we want to be the boss? Do we want to just like stand by and let the millennials take over? Like, what is our role here? And since you have it in the 11th house, that is either you're going to take charge, you're going to take the lead, or you're going to find a tribe where you can at least be part of a charge, part of a group where you're doing something meaningful.
Yeah. And, honestly, if she's thinking about doing her own business, do it, because that's going to be there. She'll be able to find her people during that time. Yeah. But and with romance, there may be fluctuations. I would say this Chiron return is going to be the most I don't want to say disruptive time, but it's definitely not to be ignored.
Right.
And decisions about romance and career really are going to be in flux until this has passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we have the good news. Let's have some good news. So Jupiter's going to cross her ascendant in August this year.
Oh.
So this is
nice.
great. So it's going to go from her 12th house, where it's been for over a year already, in the let me stay by myself and not do much.
Yeah.
So it's going to cross over that ascendant and come into the light. Now, this is great. And at the week when Jupiter crosses her ascendant, it's actually conjoining Mars by transit.
Yeah.
So it's going to come in all flaming, yeah. Blazing and flaming.
Yeah.
As Mars comes through, giving her energy, vigor, vitality into that first house. And it will be an amazing time for personal growth.
Yes.
And that's going to be starting the third week in August.
Yeah.
So you definitely need to pay attention to that, to the Mars coming through, the Jupiter coming through, and that particular conjunction, which we'll no doubt be talking about anyway.
Yes.
But that is going to give her personal optimism and a better outlook. And if things have been a little grey recently, by the time we get to August, which is a couple of months down the road, the light's going to be shining one more time.
It's a boost.
I think it's great.
Boost. Yeah.
So I do think that pay attention to that Jupiter as it's bringing its gifts to you personally.
Yep.
And the Mars, it's going to be ba-bam,
Yeah.
ba-bam, ba-bam, bama boom, yeah, bella boom, bama, baba boom. And I think that is going to be a great time. And once that Jupiter has stimulated this ascendant and said, hey, Bella, time, come on, let's get some growth going. Let's go and do this. Let's be optimistic. Yeah. Life is good. The sun is shining once more.
Yes.
I think there will be a whole attitude shift at that time as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Turning our attention to the solar return chart, this is actually the one I'm looking at here, is the one for October 2023, where the sun is actually in the 11th house, and its one and only aspect is opposing the Chiron. Once more bringing in that thought that this is going to be a year for dealing with those things. The sun is in the 11th house, which we spoke quite a bit about as well, which is highly important in a solar return, that the group, the people, the tribe is going to be important between now and her next birthday. And then if we look at the 5th and 7th houses here, we've got the moon in her 7th house, where she did speak about relationships, where there's going to be an urgency for an emotional connection for romance. Now, you would think, well, isn't that always? Well, no. This year, she's looking for someone who's tuning right into, how do you feel today? Right. You're looking a little sad. And this kind of attention that's going to be required. And that'll be the case up until her birthday in October.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is needy. I'm just saying it's that she's requiring this at the moment, and it may not be the easiest thing to pull off. Mm-hmm. So again, we want to pace ourselves and look more towards the end of the year as we go into the second next solar return, which will only occur in October. Yeah,
nice.
Okay, so we've had a look at our listeners' chart, Bella Boom. We've gone through a few ways of how we would approach the natal chart. Yeah. We've looked at a couple of transits popping up. We've addressed some of her questions. I mean, there's a lot more to be done here, and looked at the solar return as well. But there's a lot. The real thing is you've got to understand the natal chart before you can even look at forecasting.
Yes.
So this is a high-level interpretation of how we would work at a natal chart.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bella, thanks for listening. Thanks for contributing your chart. We really appreciate all of our listeners. And
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And if you found value in this episode, please do consider sharing it with someone else. You can email us at starzology@gmail.com. Mm-hmm. Let us know what you think of our interpretation. You can visit our website at starzology.com. And so it just comes to me to say, Arwynne, thank you so much for joining me again today.
Thank you. It's been great to be here.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer, or someone who's learning astrology, or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there. Or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.